real life event that really occurred, but the characters are all fictional, and the story's fictional. But the event that happened and that the plot is around is real. So the event is World War II, and next year in history class, you're going to be studying all about World War II and the Holocaust and the Nazis and Hitler and everything. So this might be a really good book for you to read next year when you're covering that unit. So it's July 16th, 1942 in Paris, France. And at that time during the war, France was occupied by the Germans. So the Germans were in charge and ruling, and basically the Germans wanted to get rid of the entire Jewish population. So they commanded all the French officers to round up all of the Jewish families. So the main character is Sarah, who is 10 years old, and I'm just going to read a portion of what happens when the police knock on Sarah's door. The mother began to sob, gently at first, then louder. The girl looked at her, stunned. In all her 10 years, she had never seen her mother cry. Appalled, she watched the tears trickle down her mother's white, crumpled face. She wanted to tell her mother to stop crying. She could not bear the shame of seeing her mother snivel in front of these strange men. But the men paid no attention to the mother's tears. They told her to hurry up. There was no time to waste. So basically, the police knocked on these doors of the Jewish people, and they, had signs on their doors that they were Jewish, and they had to wear stars on their clothing to show that they were Jewish. So when they came during this, the event in Paris on July 16th, 1942 was called the Velodrome de Havre Roundup. I don't take French, so, and then they've shortened it to the Vel de Hive. And on this day is when all the French police went around and gathered all the Jews. Well, Sarah's brother was 4 years old at the time, and they had a hiding place in their house, in a cupboard. And it even had a key. So when these policemen came, she convinced her brother, go hide in the cupboard, go hide in the cupboard. So far with the whole war, her parents have kind of shielded her from what was going on, so she wasn't really aware that these policemen were taking her for good and their families for good and planning on killing her. She had no idea. So she just wanted to keep her brother safe, so she locked him in a cupboard. He was 4 years old, and the policeman took her family. And she told her parents, I kept, my brother safe. He's in the cupboard. So this story then proceeds to tell you what happens to Sarah's family, what happens to the brother. But fast forward 60 years to 2002, there's another storyline happening in the book. And that is of the character named Julia, who is a French journalist, but she was born in America. She moved to France, married a Frenchman, and Julia has a child, Zoe, who's 11. So Sarah, the main character back in 1942, is 10. This woman's daughter, Zoe, is 11. So you kind of see the similarities building. Then the editor of her newspaper said, we want you to do a story on the Velodrome de Havre. It's the 60th anniversary, because 1942 to 2002, it's the 60th anniversary. Well, the French people were not proud of that day. I mean, it wasn't a great day in history. They don't want to publicize it and tell people that they rounded up all of the Jews to then proceed to kill them. So when they rounded up the Jews, they put them in this place called the Velodrome de Havre, and it's kind of like our modern day stadiums. It would be like taking them all to the Allstate Arena. So they left them there for a couple days, no food, no bathrooms, just terrible conditions. And then they separated the families into the men, the women, and the children. And the children were taken to one concentration camp, women to another. So Sarah is just constantly trying to escape to go save her brother. So the two stories intertwine. It kind of goes back and forth between Sarah's story and then Julia's research of the Vel de Hive. And she married a Frenchman, and this Frenchman's grandmother is going into a nursing home. So they are now going to live in this grandmother's apartment. Dun, 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 dun. Does anybody see? So it's a page turner because you just see kind of the correlation that Julia is going to uncover as she's researching the Valdehyde. And what happens to Sarah and her brother and her family. So, it's really, really good. I highly recommend it, especially if you like historical fiction. Some people aren't a fan, and that's fine too. But that's my book talk.
Questions?
I'm not going to give it away, so don't ask me questions of what happened. But, any other questions?
Was it the same, well, this is kind of what happened, but is it the same apartment as that they lived in?
You make predictions.
Okay.
And you're a smart girl, Nicole, so I bet you. Anybody else?
And she wouldn't bring this if she didn't totally love this book. Why would she come to school, be our first guest ever, and bring a book she didn't like? So, yeah, who's the author?
Tatiana de Rosnay, and she's actually lives in France, but she's of German, Russian, and French descent. Or English, German, and Russian, English, French, and Russian descent.
What made you pick it up?
I love historical fiction, and it's sad to say I love learning about the Holocaust, as sad as the event was, but I just love that. So that's why I picked it up and wanted to read it.